Well, I hope everybody's enjoying your lunch, and please keep on going. We have a very exciting lunch panel. So I'm actually, again, my name's Chris James. Good to see everybody, and also people online as well. And this is also will be recorded and archived, so we'll have folks can rewatch some of the panels today. So that's very exciting. But let me just get right into it. And we can start with you, Tyler. Just introduce yourself, maybe give a little background about yourself, and we'll just go down the line to Kathy.
Wonderful, thank you. OCO, my name is Tyler Hogan. I'm one of the co-chairs, along with my colleague Sam McCracken of Nike's Native American and Friends Employee Network. We're one of the 8 employee resource groups here at Nike, and our job is to help lead and represent our Indigenous community here within Nike. I've been here almost 10 years now. I currently work in North American Marketplace, which is what we now call sales at Nike, as an account executive covering our Pacific Northwest territory. And I started my journey as the N7 intern way back in 2012. So I've had the good fortune of having Sam as a mentor for a little over a decade now.
Hello, everybody. I know I spoke to you this morning, so most of you probably know who I am. I'm Sam McCracken. I'm the general manager and visionary of Nike N7. And I'm excited to sit up here with my esteemed colleagues that will help share some knowledge about how we make a commitment to our Indigenous community here at Nike. And I'll turn it over to the star of the show, Kathy Baird.
Hardly. Feels funny to talk on a microphone, but Haumatako yape, chante washte, nape, chiuzapekisto. Hi, relatives. My name is Kathy Baird. I greet you with a good heart. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Rosebud Lakota Nation, and I'm also of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. I work here at Nike as a senior director of global communications and support all things N7. I consider myself Sam's comms person for the most part, so work very closely with Sam, and the three of us co-chair Nike's Native American Network.
Great, thank you so much, and really awesome team here, and a lot of awesome knowledge. So I'm really excited to ask a few of these questions. So just getting right into it, tell us a little bit about some of the programs that you have here that's really helping Nike be an effective company. So Kathy, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, part of it is, I guess if we want to talk about the Indigenous perspective, one of the things I think that's really important is that Nike is very committed across different communities. So we have something that's called Nike United. Those are our 8 employee resource groups. Our community, the Native American Network, is one of those communities. Each of these groups has leadership teams, opportunity to drive programming. I think part of the big reason, part of the big experience here, if you are of a community, is to have this network of folks who are creating opportunities for inclusion. There's also, as you know, in our community, opportunities to educate. And I think that's one of the things that we really have set forth to do in terms of being able to run this program. And as much as we want to create inclusion for our own communities, one of the things that we talk about is that we don't want to only talk to ourselves. We need each other to talk to ourselves, and we need to make ourselves feel included. But at the end of the day, if we're not telling others who we are and making sure that they know that we're here and debunking any stereotypes or misperceptions, we're missing an opportunity. And I think at Nike, it's one of the things that we've really strove to do as a part of our network. Other programs that Nike offers are across the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion ecosystem. There's a lot of great work that Nike is doing to drive everything from representation to community impact. I think we also feel great about the work we've been able to do under N7 in driving community impact. It's not, as you can see, you probably can't see under the table, but we all have our N7s on, and we get to, we love to wear the brand because it helps us basically represent ourselves, been used as an educational tool. But additionally, like beyond just the sneaker and the apparel, there's a commitment to bringing Indigenous youth into sport and into movement. And that's really important to us. We're all here to serve our community, and I think we've been able to do that in the work we do.
So Tyler, we've talked a little bit about the network. NCAIED and Nike has had a partnership for several years. Can you talk about some of that partnership and some of the work around employee recruitment, and again, go back to why that impact is important in trying to recruit more Indigenous folks into Nike.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that is incredibly important to us, and I think probably just as important to everyone in this room, is representation, right? We want to see our community, our people represented in all of the spaces where we live, work, and play. So when we think about through the lens of Nike, it's been around how do we make Nike an employer of choice for our top Native talent throughout North America? We obviously, in developing this great relationship with the NCAIED, understood that this is a really powerful organization and tool that's going to help us build new capabilities around creating recruitment pathways. And one of the issues that we face, which I'm sure you all have discussed in your day jobs or even during the summit, is around how do we build bridges and break down some of these barriers that are limiting or prohibiting, whether it's Native students or Native folks already, at any part of the journey in their professional career. How do we open up some doors for them, right? How do we make that space so that we can see them represented within corporate America, within the nonprofit world, within small business communities? And so we created this partnership or together partnered to make sure that we could leverage the work that you all are doing, and in return make sure that we're trying to support the work that you're doing, whether it's through through Res or through Native Edge, or even just in creating new relationships that are going to allow us to develop those pathways within the community so that we can highlight that talent. One of the ways we've done that is by building out a system that makes sure that you all receive, or Chris, we probably get some weekly, I think, emails from Nike highlighting some of the open roles and opportunities, so that when you all have people that are looking for those roles that know and trust your organization, they are also then seeing what's happening and what's available, what's open at Nike. I think that's a really great way for us to increase representation and to create those pathways. But the next step of that, and really the evolution of that, was creating something that we call the Nike Footprint Summit. The Footprint Summit is an opportunity for us to gather thought leaders, tribal leaders, corporate leaders, nonprofit leaders into one space to talk about how do we build strategy, how do we build our professional networks of Indigenous people to come together to really make sure that we're doing everything that we can to create these opportunities for our community, especially for our students. And that's kind of where we're at today. Obviously, things looked a little different the last couple years with everyone working from home and on Zoom. But we're really fortunate to be back, to have you all here on campus, and to hopefully have you all back and have a presence at our next Footprint Summit, so we can continue to build this relationship together, which hopefully is just a win-win, right? I think we all want to see Native people succeed and thrive, and we want to see representation where we live, work, and play.
Thank you. Sam, you've been doing work around the community and around youth programs for a very long time. Probably since you were very little, as a lot of us have worked with youth in multiple capacities. Tell us some of the work that you've done and what's been most impactful on how that work has evolved.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for that question. It's been part of the evolution of kind of the original vision that I had when I started to lay the foundation of what we all know today as Nike N7. And I think part of that was in the forefront of all of the kind of ideation we did at the early parts of building this was providing access to sport and the benefits that sport can have in our Indigenous communities. I think as you think about the work we do, I think I'll go back to the mission and vision of that work, and it's to inspire and enable 1.5 million Indigenous youth to participate in sport and physical activity, and most importantly, make sport a daily habit. So as you think about that mentality and how we approach the marketplace, our goal as a network is to make that same statement, and so that when we're talking to our consumers, our community, it feels very inclusive to our employees. So it's part of our employee engagement strategy. It's collectively as we do that. So we try to celebrate that. So that N7 feels part of not only the same way for a Nike employee as it would for a community member in the community. So I think that and just knowing I think as you look at organizations like the NB3 Foundation, who has done, based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, they've been a long-time partner in the community, and they're doing fantastic work, working with thousands and thousands of kids to get them access to sport and really address the key complications in our community, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, those things, and they're all part of the kind of the unfortunate DNA of what we have to deal with in our communities as we think about historical trauma and the things that lead to us to where we are today. So hopefully N7 can be a small microcosm of inspiration to not only you all as community members, but to our employees who support our network as well. So I would say that for me, that's kind of the cusp of kind of my work that I try to do every day.
And the beauty about the N7 product, even when I wear my N7 shoes around people, you get to tell the story. And someone's like, where did you get those? I didn't even know Nike had that brand. You tell the story, and then the impact goes into the communities. And maybe talk a little bit, Kathy, I know you had mentioned maybe some examples of some recent impact. Could you talk about that sort of next level? N7's not just a product, it actually, there's a philanthropic piece to it as well.
Absolutely. I think MB3 is one of the best examples that we could talk about, which I'll get to. But I think one of the things also is just in terms of our recruitment strategy, I have a theory that every Indigenous person who comes to work at Nike has perhaps been touched by the brand through N7. And that's the case for me. I wasn't recruited by N7. I was recruited by Nike. But the fact that Nike supported N7, and I knew of Sam at that time, was one of the reasons why I came. The fact that Nike had a Native American network, I'm like, oh, cool, other Indians are going to be there. That's great. It's going to be great for me to work for I'd never worked for a large company like this in my career. So those two things for me were reasons why I ended up coming here. So just on the side of recruitment, N7 is also useful for that, because when you're in the community here, whether you like it or not, you're working on N7. You're going to work on it. You're going to see something. Someone's going to call you and say, hey, we have this product that's coming up. This is, a Haudenosaunee sort of focused effort. Hey, Kathy, could you come in here in the room with the designers? These are the moments you get to have as a part of for us to be truly authentic and represent the Indigenous people who are working here. So I think that's a part of it. On the community side, N7 is always tied. I think first and foremost, beyond the beautiful sneaker, and we love sneakers here and apparel, it is, as Sam said, it's originated in its intent to be of service to the community. That is why it exists. That is why it was founded. Sam can talk about his recognition, but that is how Sam received a recognition from the World Economic Forum this year, is because the product is a vehicle, a means to the end. It gives us a tool to educate, but also the N7 Fund is what gave us the ability to go into communities and actually change lives. And we have partnered with, I think, over 300 organizations who have been the recipient of N7 funds through the last 10 years, as well as given upward of, I think we're in like the $9 million area-ish. Don't quote me on that, but like in that space in terms of the commitments that's been put back into community. So it's hard to talk about that, like one example from that. Some of those partners have included NB3 Foundation, where there are more children that are being given access to sport as a means of this. I would like to say there are probably lives that are changed as a result of some of the programming that we've done and the commitments that we've made. Because yes, it's, I would say, philanthropic plus. It's about the dollars given, but it's also about then what can N7 then do in that community physically to go into the community and be a part of it, or to drive some kind of activity, or to bring in athletes that inspire and engage. And I think we collectively don't view these as just let's put money and grants in the hands, but then what's our connection to that organization, and how do we then empower that organization even further beyond just the dollars?
If I can add one piece to that, I really like what Kathy said about philanthropic plus, because I think that's a huge part of what we at this table and what we as Indigenous people at Nike do every day. We show up in really cool ways, right? We tell stories about the shoes that we're wearing and what inspired the design, and how it feels like we are representing ourselves. We are seeing ourselves when we wear that product. We show up as a brand N7, and we do really cool things and activations, right? You could be in Times Square and see, Sam and Janae and Native athletes, on a 100-foot billboard. You can be in Oklahoma City and see Lindy Waters coming in from Oklahoma City Thunder to have a conversation with kids and consumers. Those are all really great, but I think on top of that philanthropic plus is the grants that we issue, the donations that we make, the investment that we make in community has to be matched by what we're doing here in relationship with organizations like yours, right? If we want to solve some of these problems impacting our community, and we want to start to break down barriers, build those bridges, it requires that plus to be a huge part of the strategy, right? Like, we have to leverage our relationships with all of y'all. We have to make sure that we're building a cohesive strategy that actually thinks long term about what the future state of Nike and N7 means 20 years from now. And I think that this is a huge part of it, is that philanthropic plus. You make an impact in the community, you show up with a strong brand and with strong product, and then you continue to build relationships with other corporations and nonprofits that want to do this same work. And that's where we're going to see our community, especially our youth, truly uplifted. And hopefully, we see the next Sam McCracken, the next Kathy Baird, because of some of this work that we do together in partnership.
I just want to kind of add one thing, and I'll just share you a personal experience, because I work in the confines of Beaverton, Oregon, but where I see the benefit of the work that this team is fortunate to do is when you're engaging with community members. So I'll share you a story. This morning, I was sitting in the back of the room there, and a gentleman came up to me and said to me, he goes, "I want to thank you. I want to thank you for what you've done for my family and my community. N7 has changed our lives." And I was just like, I'm sitting there, I'm just blown away. And I want to thank you, the gentleman sitting in the back, that he said that N7 has been such an inspiration for him. That's the intent, but it's not reality for me, because look at where I work. I come to work every day in Beaverton, Oregon. I live in a pretty homogenized community in Sherwood, Oregon, where I'm probably the only native guy in the whole town, right? But that's just where I work. So when I get in the community, I get around the people I care most about. That's when the work that I know, that I've been able to do for 22 plus years, I see it come to fruition. So I want to thank you for your comments. I want to make that public statement to your colleagues here that are here. But thank you. But to your point, Chris, that's when you're doing the right thing.
Sam, hold the microphone, because Kathy had mentioned your SWAV 2022 Social Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Let's give Sam a round of applause. That's a big deal. Was one of two Indigenous people in the world that got this award. Tell us a little bit about that, Sam, and then tell us what next steps.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. And that award doesn't happen without Kathy Baird, because Kathy actually, I'm a storyteller, so just got to bear with me. That's part of my culture. I got this random email from a lady who found me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I've nominated you for the global social entrepreneur, whatever it was," and you're getting a good sense of who I am now with the story, right? You're getting to see Sam McCracken at his best. So I forwarded to Kathy and I go, "What is this? I'm about to delete it." She goes, "No, don't delete it. Fill it out the best you can, and then I'll come in and help you." And she actually helped me, and we submitted it. And then on a Sunday evening, we submitted. It was due on Monday. Yep. They're in Europe. We're in Oregon. But long story short is that I got an email back in June that said I won, and I was going to be a recipient, and I was going to go to Davos, Switzerland, and stand on the stage in front of 70 million people and accept this recognition. So it wasn't for her and kind of nudging me, because humbly I was just like, why me? Like, I'm just a guy from Fort Peck, why do they find me? But what it has done is it led to opening doors for the National Center, and Chris will allude to this. And for me, I got the opportunity to move from the margins, as you look at who we are as Indigenous people, to a mainstream. And I during my comments at Davos, I talked to the audience about thanking the SWAV Foundation for recognizing an Indigenous entrepreneur and giving me the platform to move from the margins to the mainstream. And I reminded them, when you see me, you see us, all of us. So I tried to do the best that I could to represent all of you on a very uncomfortable and non-familiar stage in front of a lot of people around the world. But you know, I was who I was, and I am who I am. So I did the best I could.
You did great. You did beyond great.
Well, congratulations, and you know that's such great work and recognition of what an entrepreneur is, of designing a model that's totally outside of corporate environment and building a infrastructure. We have a room full of entrepreneurs that you know can really take a lot of from that in that story. So thank you so much. So we're November, of course, is Native American Heritage Month. And each one of you can share this in your own way, but do you mind sharing just what some of the work that Nike's done for Native or about to do for Native American? I know this is a little bit of a kickoff, but tell us a little bit about the upcoming month and any specific plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, it's a great transition and kickoff because in about 3 hours, we're going to host Chelsea Luger and Thosh Collins of Well for Culture and the launch of their new book, The 7 Circles of Wellness, Guide for Indigenous Living and Healing. And so we're really excited. We're going to do that upstairs. Maybe we can get a little guest appearance if y'all are still here, but we'll see what time their plane lands. But that's just one example of the ways that we want to make sure that we're showing up for people at Nike, for our Native community, and also for the allies. We want people to see and showcase some of the amazing work going on throughout Indian country. So we'll be doing that this afternoon, and then we're going to lead into several other events, and a couple that I want to highlight. One is that we've been building a relationship and committing, recently committed to building a skate park in Standing Rock, and so I think it's just another example of the way that Nike and N7 are showing up in our community to create access to sport and to make sport a daily habit. On top of that, we're going to be inviting in a couple folks. We're going to bring in a professor and an attorney from Gonzaga who's going to give us a little Indian Law 101, because I think there's been so much going on, and there's been mainstream media like moving from the margins to the mainstream, where allies and non-Indigenous people are actually talking about tribal law and tribal nations, what some of these rulings mean. So have an opportunity to do that. And then Sam's going to host a really incredible and I think deeply moving and meaningful event as well that I'll let him share about. But our goal is to show up and to represent Indigenous people to the best of our ability, and that means making sure that we're showcasing a wide range of everything that modern Native people are doing every day, right? They're starting businesses, they're entrepreneurs, in this room today. They're writing books, they're having books published. They're creating feature documentaries with really cool people, and that's our job and that's our role. So that's what we're going to try to do for the month, and I'll pass it over for a couple other events.
Well, the one Tyler was alluding to, it's a story about a young lady who played college basketball at Oral Roberts University, and her name is Lakota Beatty. Lakota is she's from North Dakota, but her mom and dad both work at Riverside Indian School in Anadarko, Oklahoma. So she grew up in Anadarko, and she had a little sister who was her best friend, 2 years younger. They played res ball all the way up. Both were playing at Oral Roberts University. Lakota was a junior. Ashley was a freshman. And one day, Lakota dropped Ashley off at her dorm. And when she woke up, she found out her sister committed suicide. And so they've captured this documentary on the resilience of Lakota and what her and her family have gone through after the loss of one of their, obviously Lakota's best friend, her sister, but more importantly, her teammate too, and what basketball and what sport did to allow her to grieve and heal through that process. It's powerful. I just pitched it to Chris. We're going to try to show it at Res. If any of you go into Res, we're going to try to bring Lakota. And then Kyle is his name's Kyle Bell. He's a documentary filmmaker, and he's mentoring under Spike Lee. So Spike has taken him under his arms. So Kyle is an up-and-coming documentary filmmaker. He's also from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's a Creek from the Creek Nation in Oklahoma. And so Kyle Bell is going to be, we're going to have them both here to share this very inspiring story, moving story, emotional story, but then we're hoping to have the resources for our employees to be able to deal, because we all know mental health is really critically important to all of us as we get through COVID, and for us as Indigenous people, even adding on to kind of the historical trauma we've had to deal with as Indigenous people as well. and then the skate park thing. I'll let Kathy go a little bit in, but we have a really cool partnership with the Montana Pool Service. So I'll let her chime in on that and fill you in with that.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to tell you what our theme is for the month, which is the power of the matriarch. So that is something that we align every month, or every season of Native American Heritage Month. We say we are not Indigenous only this month, we're Indigenous throughout the year, but we really get to go all out and we get to go big this month and wear our biggest earrings and wear all of our N7 and show up in big ways here. So that's our focus. But this year we kind of got together and talked about how sort of the visibility of Indigenous women has been really powerful of late. We see our Auntie Deb, Secretary of the Interior, which is a big win for us. We see our women in Congress. Sharice is facing a tough moment right now, so got to get behind her. We have our first Indigenous woman ever to go into space, so that was pretty exciting. And we have a first Alaskan Native woman in Congress as well, too. And then also, like, look at everyone that is making it to TV, right? Reservation Dogs. We've got all of our women. We've got Jana, we've got Pauline, we've got Devery, we've got the writers, the cast, Sierra Ornelas, Amber. Yeah, we have so much happening in the space, and so it is really it's just a great time, to sort of recognize that. So the power of the matriarch is the theme. One other thing I will tell you is, as you came to the campus today, or if you've been here before, there are some flags when you enter the base of Bowerman Drive. Those flags, we make them take them down for us so that we can raise flags of our tribal nation for the month of November. And I can't think of a more amazing moment I've had as a professional, as an Indigenous woman in the workplace, than to stand at the base of campus and raise the flag of the Rosebud Sioux tribe at the base of campus, right? I mean, that's just amazing. And I don't know that anybody driving by is seeing the flag itself, but for me personally, it's so powerful. Like, that's for us, So that's a piece of the month. The Montana Pool Service that Sam was talking about is basically a nonprofit started by a guy whose name is Jeff Ament, and he is a member of Pearl Jam, which is a band you may have heard of. Jeff is from Montana and has deep relations with the tribal community in Montana, and is also a skater, an avid skater. And so he has created a whole movement of skate parks and really working with tribal youth to bring, either to focus on sport that already exists in community or to bring others into it. I think skate is like a really accessible way to get involved in movement. And we're seeing, I've grown up with it, but I know now it's kind of like, it's a pretty popular community effort in sport, and also our girls are in there too, which is really amazing. So the partnership with Jeff and his nonprofit will be both, it's a moment that we'll have in Heritage Month, but that's a deeper Nike relationship, which we're really looking to establish and bring N7 in the middle of that, so that N7 is like, again, it's like, yeah, the sneakers are really cool and they're educational, but it's beyond that. It's like, how do we then really make impact and drive value and drive change to happen? And so that's one of those, I think, partnerships where it's like what we talk about philanthropic plus, it's one of those.
The beauty of that skate park example and the work that nonprofit does is amazing, because it is creating, I grew up in rural America. I think a lot of us have roots in rural America. Having a safe place, for kids to go and also exercise, and is pretty impactful. I have 3 children. My 15-year-old is too big of a skater. I'm always nervous every time he gets out there, but that's really awesome. I want to talk a little bit, and Tyler, you alluded to this some, but I do want to talk a little bit. A lot of our audience are suppliers, and one, I think sometimes there's 2 questions of like, how does a Native business owner get into a supply chain like Nike? And we talked about, I not only get an email about recruitment, but I also get an email with a list of contracts coming out from Nike. So just from you guys' perspective, I know that you guys are not in the supplier diversity program, but the supplier diversity program seems to be very robust here at Nike, and they're building. And since this partnership, I've seen it grow tremendously. So talk a little bit about the supplier diversity program, and if you can, if someone is looking how to enter the market, how do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we recognize with this kind of that plus really seems to be a theme here is that, like, it's not just about recruitment for us. It's about how do we make sure that folks that are doing this work that can benefit Nike and continue to increase representation of Native people in the way that we work, which includes Nike's massive global supply chain, is by leveraging our diversity supplier organization. And so we leverage the relationship with Chris and with NCAIED to say, hey, here's an opportunity. Here's an organization that is doing this work and doing this work well, is trusted in the community, and built that strategy to say, let's integrate you into what we do, right? And so that's integrating, plugging your organization into our systems so that you can get information and get access to what's happening. But beyond that, it required a strategy, and it required, us, really, the Native people at Nike, to really push on that, to speak up and say, like, look, we want to see an actual strategy and some deliverables on how you're going to integrate Indigenous communities into this work, right? Because there's folks like you that are doing and running these businesses that have an opportunity to participate in a massive global supply chain that can be very beneficial for all of you. The goal of our relationship is a partnership, right? We want this to be mutually beneficial for everyone. And so I think that that's really where that work started and where it continues today, is making sure that you have access to the information. I think that next step, is probably going to be around, how do we identify the key opportunities in marketplaces where we live and work right now? Because when we think about a massive global supply chain, most of us live in North America, right? And so I think that how do we identify the places, the pockets, whether it's the Oklahomas, the Arizonas, New Mexicos, South Dakotas, to understand that those are areas that our supply chain reaches. We just need to make sure that we understand that we can specifically target those areas for those opportunities. And so I think that what we've built so far is pretty great, in the sense that when contracts are coming up, you get notified. You have the opportunity to take that back out to the folks who are members and a part of your organization, and that's going to give us the ability to start to see more and more Native people participating in that supply chain. And I really believe that getting more focused and dialed on what are our markets, what are the markets where Indigenous entrepreneurs are showing up the most and have the biggest opportunity to play a key role in our supply chain.
Chris, if I can just share an example of that diversity supplier work. The organization that works for the National Center is doing the video, they're doing the filming, they're capturing content. We do that every single day here at Nike. Now I'm going to get their card and I'm going to share it with the folks that contract that work, and say, we do this every single day. At the least, when we do N7 content, let's make sure they're part of the conference. They're getting the opportunity to see the RFP as we're looking for Indigenous-owned businesses, because that's one of the things that collectively the three of us are really pushing this company to do, is to make sure that at the least, when we do our work around N7, that the talent, the staff, the agencies are all Indigenous people as well. So that's an opportunity. But that's what our partnership with this organization really brings to life, is we have a person that we can share access to RFPs, opportunities for electricians, whatever it may be. And then Chris can then share that with all of his partners.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I just got the email yesterday for this month's, and there's probably 12 different buckets: plumber, electrician, maintenance, building maintenance, construction. There's just so many opportunities for a small business to do work with a company, it's just getting your foot in the door and getting in. Well, I mean, we could talk all day. So, I mean, I could ask you a million questions. All of you have expertise in many, many things, but I do want to give you each some time just for one last thought. And then if it's okay, we can maybe ask the audience. So why don't we ask the audience if they have a question first, and then we'll let you guys each have just a minute to do final thoughts.
No hard questions, okay? Lob balls.
Do you want one of these? Yeah.
Any questions from the audience?
Sorry. Yes, Chamai. I have a question. My name's Marlia Mokbiak-Labelle, and I am from Anchorage, Alaska, and I love N7, and I've been following it for a while, but I would super love to see an Alaskan Native, artist or collection or something. So I'm curious, are there any plans for incorporating Alaskan Native? Don't forget us. We're way far away. We're way up north, and it's real cold. But
I can
please
answer
don't
your
forget
question.
us.
So my intern last summer, her name was Kaylin Johnson. She comes from Ketchikan, Alaska. And guess what? She just got hired. So she's going to be here with us, with our family, with our team. She did amazing. She reminded us every day not to forget about the Native Alaskans. And then there's one of our colleagues who sits with us. Derek knows her really well. Her name's Izzy Asana. And Izzy Asana is married to a Native Alaskan. And so she reminds us all the time that we have to always remember the Native Alaskans. So, yeah. Yeah. And so you're not forgotten. And now you'll have your own voice here as one of our employees and one of our members of our organization. So I can guarantee you won't be forgotten. And I will tell you the last time we did grants, Cook Inlet just got a pretty substantial grant from the N7 fund. So we do recognize our brothers and sisters in the North. So thanks for that question. And I was excited to tell you that answer too.
I think right here in the back.
Hello, thank you. As a Tlingit, I was really inspired when you got Martin Sensmeyer, the actor. He's just, to me, he's like a regular person. When he's doing his stuff, he's out there hustling. He's showing us that you can do it. I recognize him as a village person, and I just think that, he's of the people. So I did love that Alaska representation, and I'm grateful that you guys hired Alaska people. But I just had a comment that I lived in Pine Ridge, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I lived on there for three plus years, and one of the most beautiful things there was the skate park. And the skate park, having all those young people there, they all had helmets, they were all doing, they were just having a great time. And I visited there previous to the skate park being there, and there was nothing. Really, truly, there was nothing there. And now that skate park is filled, and it's a similar foundation, similar guy from Pearl Jam. I think that's the guy who helped it happen. But I just want to say that's huge for our community. So thank you, and Gunuk Chish.
Any other questions? We have one more here in the back.
Mate, oh, you got one too? I'll pass it. No, I'll pass it to you when I'm done. This might be a bit of a hard question. It's maybe kind of a two-part. And forgive me if I missed what may have been said before I walked in, because it kind of sounded like you were talking about pipelines and how you kind of provide access. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Like Nike is a very sought-after employer. It's highly competitive. You get your kind of pick of the litter from all the places, right? So how is Nike providing opportunity to support Native youth and adults in gaining access to employment here, seeing that it is so competitive, without, say, cherry picking just kind of the best who might be able to rise up throughout the rest, and along with that, how does Nike then provide a space where, say, the values of Indigenous folks are highlighted and represented in a way that someone coming from a reservation or somebody coming from a very heavy tradition that is steeped in that will feel whole and authentic in this place? Yeah.
So excited to answer your question. I'm just a girl from Rosebud, so I just need to say that out loud. It is who I am. It's where I'm from. When we introduced ourselves, we all gave our backgrounds, which you might have missed, but it's an important part of my identity that I lead with in every space I show up in. It's my responsibility. It's my value. It's how I was taught. It's how I was taught to introduce myself and who I am. So that's number one. Number two, I think in your question about talent and pipeline, this is a great question, and it's something that I would say is like, this is a challenge across corporate America at large. And primarily, I think one of the barriers to that is that we as Indigenous people are intended to serve our communities always. That could look like different things to us. It could look like us working for our tribes. It could look like us starting a business in our tribal community. It could look like us working for Chris. It could look like us working for another company and being the only Indigenous person in the space you're in. And I think all of us in our Nike world every single one of us have had those moments in our professional journeys. One of the things we're doing now is a lot of intentional work around building relationships with tribal colleges. Is really important to us. I've just returned from IAIA, the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. They have brilliant students who are coming from all parts of tribal backgrounds, whether they are an urban Indian or whether they're coming from the res. These are students who are coming together, like many different tribes are represented there in terms of the pursuit of the art that we do that's inherent in who we are, and being able to take that into degrees, master's degrees, doctorate degrees, and garner employment. And so we've spent a week there with Nike's, not just the Indigenous people at Nike, but our chief design officer at Nike. We've spent a week there to listen, learn, build relationships, foster an understanding so that it's not Nike coming in with a pre-prescribed solution, but it's us listening to the community in terms of what the needs are. I think that model of this emerging partnership will form a model for us in the future. We also do a lot of other work with tribal colleges too, outside of that. We have a whole team here, a woman who is responsible for talent acquisition of the Indigenous population. There's a website for that. You can look up Indigenous at Nike on the website. You'll see many different voices and faces of all of us in terms of our experiences here, but predominantly what we're doing in community. So I think I want to just say, like, an understanding of Indigenous values is inherent. And I could not be in any space where I couldn't bring my authentic, true self to the table. I also recognize that there are people that are junior to me, that are coming from the res, that are coming from other spaces, that need that mentorship. And that is one of the reasons why the Native American Network exists here. Everything you said is like all great questions. Those were my questions actually when I joined Nike as an employee. How can I show up at work as my unapologetically, authentically Indigenous self every single day? How do I bring my Indigenous values to the workplace? How do I serve my community? Those are my questions when I interviewed here. Yeah, the job was great. I can do those things. Tactically, I know how to do communications, but how do I bring my true self? And the fact that it existed already, and there was a Sam here and a Tyler here already, are part of the reasons that made me feel like I could see myself here.
How lucky are we to have Kathy Baird on our team? Did you hear that answer? Holy moly. I just wanted to say that. We're extremely, extremely fortunate and lucky to have someone like Kathy be on our leadership team and, more importantly, represent our community at the highest level. So I just wanted to make that statement because that answer was, I hope you liked the answer. It was fantastic.
I got one more piece to add, just in case you currently work in STEM or know anybody that does. So another aspect of what Kathy talked about in the strategy is a corporate partnership with ACES. And so Nike is committed to supporting ACES, to bringing our talent acquisition team, so our actual recruiters, the people that are able to filter through resumes, as well as native leaders like ourselves, to show up in that space year after year to make sure, like you said, that it's not just one or two folks who maybe can shine, but that all of these people that are doing this work have that opportunity. And then I think that once they get here, like Kathy mentioned, like Kathy is the perfect example of someone who shows up unapologetically Indigenous everywhere she goes, right? Like Kathy, like, just wakes up ready to, like, you know, take names and kick some backside, like, she, you know what I mean? And she just shows up authentically as a powerful Indigenous woman. And I think what we try to do here at Nike and within this network that Sam started 20 years ago is to make sure that we're building really a safe space for community, right? Is that we have, you know, we talk about ourselves in the network, we call ourselves our Nan fam, because it is that opportunity for us to engage with other people, even if we're not from the same tribe. The culture is still similar. The values are often similar. Giving each other that space to continue to express themselves and their indigeneity in a corporate setting is pretty rare. And so that's part of what we try to do just internally for our own Native folks. Because again, like we've talked about, we want Nike to be the top employer of choice for Native talent. Like, who else has a Nike N7, right? Like, not a lot of other companies can say that. We want people to know that they can come and work here, whether they work in STEM, whether they want to be a designer, they want to work in sales, they want to work in tech, wherever it might be. Nike has roles for them. We then are the community. We are the people that will support them, help them build that home, that family, and that safe space for them to be able to express themselves in their indigeneity, whether that's traditional, whether that's more modern, whatever it might be. That's the role that we step up and do as leaders of our community every day at Nike.
Great, thank you. One quick question. Do I have one more person? Have just a quick question because I still want to give the panelists time to have their last thought.
I'll defer since you're about to wrap. So yeah, go ahead. I'll save my question for.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Record. Yeah.
Well, each one of you have about 1 minute to give a last thought. So Kathy, let's start with you.
I mean,
We're gonna send Kathy off last. She's
Okay, save Kathy for last. So Tyler,
So I'll
yeah,
kick it off.
he got the microphone.
I'm just
so
going
we'll
to say
go.
thank you to everyone here. Thank you to Chris, and thank you to this partnership for keeping it alive all these years, managing to navigate through the difficulties of COVID and you know the business difficulties that we've all dealt with. I just appreciate you all, and I appreciate this work, and I'm excited to continue to do it together, hopefully for many years to come.
I want to echo a little bit what Tyler said, and I'll just put a little historical context to it. Like when in 1998, I started here in 1997, but in 1998 they asked me to take over the leadership role for the network. There were two people, me and another young lady who no longer works here. We started the network and we did our first Native American Heritage Month in November of 1998. Fortunate I was good friends with Nota Begay, so I could bring Nota here, and we had an athlete here on campus. But to sit on a panel today with the partnership with a national center, I could never imagine that in 1998. And to see it come to fruition and to have amazing talent sitting next to me like this is beyond my dreams. So thank you for giving us this opportunity, Chris. Thank you to all of you for taking some time with us. And as I said, we're going to leave the best for last, so I'll turn over to Kathy.
I don't actually know that I have much to say, but well, Pila Tanka for having me. Thank you. I would just say I think some of the questions that were asked were so good. They were like to the personal as well as some business related questions. It's really important that we have the visibility that's needed for us to be successful. Like in every single thing you're doing in your own spaces, you're creating moments for me to show up, you know, and everything Sam's doing to get recognized at the World Economic Forum, which is the largest global business stage in the entire world. He's talking about our community. You know, everyone here is talking about our community. You're all here because of community. I think, you know, and wherever you're serving in your spaces, I would just say every single one of you is important in driving us to be more successful, more visible, being in spaces that none of us have been in before, being the only Indigenous person in the room, which is quite common for all of us. So I would just encourage you to stay connected to each other, to Chris, to us, and yeah, go out and do good things and make us proud.
Thank you so much. Let's give him a great round of applause. That was wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your hospitality. I just have a couple before we go to our SBA panel. I know I'm really excited about that. So give me just 2 minutes if that's okay, because I know you guys, I know many of you have traveled far to get here. So I just wanted to let everybody know, all participants, you'll also you'll receive opportunity to shop at the Nike store this afternoon. I think you get 40% discount. Is that right, Allie? Allie's trying to up it, but I think we're 40. So that's a great opportunity to at least go to the store and look around. So even if you don't buy anything, I would urge you to go and look around. Secondly, no one else knows this. I made an executive decision that all attendees will get free registration for the Reservation Economic Summit in April. So we'll send that information out. So everybody that's an attendee here, you'll also receive registration for Res, which is April 3rd through the 6th. So that's about $1,000 value. And we'll have to figure this out, Yvette, but I do want to give out 3 pairs of round-trip Alaska airline tickets. So stick around after the SBA panel. Maybe Aaron and Yvette can figure out. So there'll be an opportunity to get a pair of round-trip Alaska airline tickets anywhere in the United States. So you could use it to come to Vegas for April 3rd through the 6th, or, you know, it'd just be a good prize. So I promise you, Aaron and Yvette will take care of that. And I thank you all for being here.